So I think that the standard of the room has to stay super high. And I think that dancers need to be pushed. Kids need to be pushed to be the best that they can be. But I think that finding leadership that comes from a place where you can find a balance of nurturing and yet not letting the ball drop of the standard, I think that is what's really hard to do.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I'm sort of passionate about, trying to always remind myself how I felt, when I was, in that side of the room as a dancer.
Welcome to the Grace and Form podcast, your backstage pass to the world of movement and the people and stories that shape it. Hi, Indy.
Hi, Sassaloo.
Hello, hello. I miss your face.
I miss your face too, but I'm so happy we can connect on this amazing podcast.
I know, we've just had the most incredible episode with someone you'll know from the title of this episode, Gonzalo Garcia. But before we dive into who Gonzalo is, for those of you who've been living under a rock, because he's a very special, very incredible individual, we will get into our learnings and our recommendations this week. I will take it away. Boom. We have had lots of chats, Indy and I, this week, just as best friends, over business partners. We've been there for each other. I think winter is a time of reflection and shedding. And I think that I've been talking about the seasons a lot. I think I'm really in them this month. And something that I think is a really important learning, and something just for all of us to hold with us, is that we can lean on the people around us. To make sure that you speak to your friends and that you voice things. I think we spoke about it in Gillian's episode, how Misty Copeland had told us that when she has these things inside her body, that actually just speaking them aloud allows them to kind of dissolve and evaporate, that when she holds them in, they hold more weight. And Totally. I've been really using that as a practice this week with Indy. Indy has been my dumping bag of thoughts.
Which I love.
Yes, because, that's friendship. You fill each other up here and there. And, I know I've taken a lot of cash out of the bank this week, and I'll replenish it another time.
Never mind.
No, exactly. So I just think it's an important thing for all of us to know, whatever you're going through, work, personal, that sometimes just voicing it is enough. And actually that really does help. So find the people and don't be afraid to speak to the people that love you, because they're there for you.
Totally.
So that's my learning. My recommendation this week, a little bit different. So thinking about muscles in the body that are very hard for us to use. And I'm going to talk about our feet. If we're not dancing all the time, thinking about proprioception, okay? So all the little tiny muscles in the feet that we aren't doing strength training, we're not building up on a daily basis. Just a really, really good exercise that we can all do, particularly those of you coming back into dance, perhaps you've had a bit of a break, is putting a tea towel is what I'd say, but a flannel, something small underneath your foot, and then just kind of doming your foot, arching your foot and dragging it in is such a great exercise to strengthen underneath the foot. Strengthening
Totally.
the arch, making it feel so that when you're in ballet classes, a text or a message I get a lot on Grace and Form social media is that people get cramp when they're starting ballet, when they're starting to come back to it if you had a long period off. Such a simple exercise goes a long way. So just putting something underneath your foot and then almost feeling like you're drawing your toes back. That would be my recommendation. Grabbing that, yeah.
Like an inchworm.
Exactly.
I love
Inchworming that foot. Such a simple, good exercise you can do while you're at your desk to help bring you back into ballet or to support your feet.
Yeah, day-to-day life, basically. Even just walking. It's so crucial. So my recommendation, I'm going to start with that first, is to go ahead and do something that you have always wanted to do, but maybe you haven't done because it's a little bit of effort, or you don't want to put time aside, or you feel like you don't have time. Try to make time for it. Making time for something that you've always wanted to do. So for me, that was taking my mom to go and create pottery, and then going to the place and going back to paint it. So 2 different time periods that I carved out for my mom and I to go and do something special. And that time for yourself and to do a activity or just something in your life that is creative maybe, or branching out, going to see a museum, reading a book, something like that. I can't tell you how much it nurtures your soul and your mind. Yeah, and your insides. It's like you always say, it's like giving yourself an inner hug from just, a creative outlet like painting, or absorbing something else and changing your pathway, which is kind of what you talked about last week, Sass, with, seeing how you're sitting in your day. This is kind of along those lines, but making it something of a physical time frame, where you can kind of like really dedicate some of that time for you, because especially in the cold months when you're feeling really cozy, you don't want to. I personally am like, oh, I'd love to just sit on the couch, which I do, and that's also important, but maybe bring out a little notepad and start drawing or write something down or journal, or, even if it's at home, it's totally doable. And it just helps you open up your mind a little bit to your life.
I think creativity that isn't linked with your job or what you do for a living is a really important thing to continue to do, even if you're absolutely rubbish at it. It's
Couldn't agree more.
Thing to do.
Or cook. Maybe you're baking. Like you did.
Exactly. Yeah, actually, sometimes the more rubbish you are, the better.
The better.
The better. Just enjoy
I was
getting a new
paint.
skill going. Yeah.
I was doing like Jackson Pollock, just splattering paint, and my mom was like, oh my God, there's so much paint.
I love it. There is so much joy to be found in creativity.
Totally. And so with that, I would say that my learning from this week is to really take, again, just some time for yourself. I'm just going to emphasize that so much, because I learned that I was going kind of 100 miles an hour this week. I had a show on Friday. I went to Buffalo on Saturday, did 2 shows there, and then did a show on Sunday back in New York. So I was really like...
I have Indy's location, and I was so confused as to where the heck you were at all times. You really
jam-packed.
Were time traveling.
It was crazy, but, totally doable and fine if you take a little bit of time for yourself. And so I guess that's my theme of this week, is to just take some time for yourself, because I took a 30-minute nap in the middle of my day with Luna, just like curled up in my dressing room, as well as 30-minute meditation and just some time for myself to listen to a podcast. And it really helped me reset my whole day and not feel as tired and drained as I thought I might feel for the last push of the week. And I just had so much fun. And then super last thing, because I know we want to introduce our amazing guest, another learning that I had this week that I'm just going to continue emphasizing, and a recommendation combined, is as a dancer, if you're feeling nervous, if you're feeling anxious, if you're feeling any sort of way before or during your performance, like you're really afraid, tune into the music. That is going to guide you so much, and it's going to take your mind out. It's going to keep you present. I just think it's the best advice that we got, actually, also from Jillian last week. And I just want to reiterate it because it helped my shows so much this weekend. As soon as I felt scared because it was a slippery floor, I tuned into the music and I was like, just present again. And it allowed me to do my double pirouettes really well. And I was really happy about that. But it wasn't just about the pirouettes. It was about the fact that I could tune into that music and really soak it into myself, which just, it's the best thing to do.
Such a good piece of advice. And there are so many nuggets that we hear and that we'll absorb and we'll probably reiterate next week from the guest that we just spoke to today, Gonzalo Garcia, one of Indy's beloved colleagues from New York City Ballet, and also a former San Francisco Ballet principal. He's now entered a new chapter as artistic director of Miami City Ballet, bringing with him a rare blend of experience, empathy, and vision shaped by nearly 3 decades in the world's leading companies. He is just such a joy to chat to. Let's get into the episode.
Let's get in.
This podcast is an extension of our app, Grace and Form, where we bring ballet classes and ballet-inspired movement practices to you from beginner to pro, so everybody and everybody can experience our love of dance in their own home.
Absolutely, and we want to share everything that makes us feel amazing with you, and you don't even need a studio, and that's what's so wonderful about it. You can feel good anywhere.
So download the app, get a 7-day free trial, come move with me and Indy and some of our wonderful guests and incredible teachers.
We can't wait to see you.
My God.
Hello, love.
Hi, Gonzalo. It's so good to meet you. Although Indy was trying to work out whether we've ever met. I don't think we have.
No, we haven't met.
I feel like I know you just because of Indy.
I don't think so. I don't think we have met. I think that you're a famous person to me because I see you on the on the social media, but I don't think so. You feel like I feel like I know you, but I really don't.
Same with Sassy.
I feel like I know you because Indy just talks about her love for you the whole time. She always does, and then she says that she's got a nickname for you that she can't. She goes, "Oh, I call him Francie, but he hates it because that's what his siblings call him."
I don't hate it. I don't hate it. I really don't hate it. I think she's the only one I think in the world that calls me that now.
Francie.
That's it. There's like no one else.
Just me.
Just you.
It makes it very special.
There you
Yeah,
go.
because I know you love it just so much.
I do love it. I feel like it connects me to you.
Yeah, it's our
even more.
term of endearment. Look at where you are.
Yeah, I'm home today because
Oh
the
my
company's
gosh.
off and I had meetings early on from like 8 a.m. I've been
Wow.
sitting here, but I don't get to do this very often, but I get to be sometimes like at home working. It's like a working home
Oh.
day.
Mhm.
And today is one of them. I think it's happened, but I do have, it's the one thing about Miami is that you do get some like pretty views.
Oh,
You
amazing.
can't see, but it's like there's water there.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Yes, I
I
can
got
see
it.
that. I would jump in that in 1 second.
Oh, I know. She's known to, I think it was like, oh yeah, we were going to the Pillow. And she's like, I gotta stop for a second. And then she got up and jumped on the lake or on the river.
Gonzo
And
was-
I was like,
Yeah,
is
it's
that
a river.
I was like, is that clean enough? Or, but then 2 minutes later, I was in the water with her. So I was like, I guess we're just gonna do this.
Yeah,
Yeah, you
know?
follow her and I follow her into all sorts of water. We were just in Australia and she was leading me into crocodile water. And it was only at the very edge where she went, "Oh, I don't think this is a good idea, actually." But I would have just gone with her. You know, any water, you're like, Indy
But
knows.
you can rely on me because my gut will tell me that this is not smart.
Oh
Yeah.
God.
Yeah, your gut did do us well in the end.
It
Okay,
does.
I'm going to start it off, okay? Your journey has been defined by bold leaps, geographically, artistically, and now institutionally as an artistic director. But every leap is shaped by where we begin. To understand the artist and leader you are today, I want to go back to Zaragoza, Spain, to the studio where you first trained with María de Ávila. What do you remember most from those early years?
Oh my God. Well, first of all, you said Zaragoza very well.
Yeah.
You
get an A+.
I learned from the best, obviously.
I've heard
Years
it a lot
of-
this week.
Years of being around my accent has paid off. So
Oh
that's
yeah,
a
I can
plus.
do it. Full.
Oh my God. Zaragoza, what can I tell you about María de Ávila? I mean, my time there was, the beginning of everything. It's where I really truly discovered that I wanted to do this, that it's like once I stepped into that studio, which was María de Ávila was sort of the one teacher and woman that revolutionized dance in Spain, because she started teaching private classes in her bedroom practically. And then her studio became a reality and it grew. And then she was very passionate, had really high standards, and she developed an amazing generation of dancers that eventually became teachers. And that's where Victor Ullate, who is also from my city, who was a really good dancer, but also it's a very famous teacher from all Angel Corella, Tamara Rojo, Joaquin de Lu, they all came out of there. And this teacher was from my city. He had kind of the same upbringing as me through this school. So she was an incredible person that changed, the way dance was in Spain, and she was a block away from my home.
Work.
Which was crazy, and it was through a friend of my mother that she said, "Well, if he's serious about dance, we hear that this is the studio to go." There, and right away, as soon as I came in, there were not a lot of young boys. I think I was one of the. They were older boys, but not my age. I think I was 7 years old. And right away, she took my hand and she walked me through the studio, kind of like showing me around. And they were rehearsing, I think, Paquita. And right away, I was like, this is it. This is serious. Like to me, it felt like I was stepping into another, dimension. And the smell of the wood, all of those things, just like I just fell in love with that environment. And I felt at home. And quickly, she gave me an amazing preparation, and she sort of gave me the path, to be successful, to have an amazing grammar, base, to be able to
Yeah,
do many, many things. So I remember those days as really happy. She was very tough. She always gave people, it didn't matter your background, your shape, everything. Everybody could learn how to dance, but everybody was held to the same high standards. So
that's so great.
to me, that was a really beautiful thing that you're not aware of when you're little. You're just aware of that everybody has the chance to be in the room, and everybody has to hold their own. And I just love that so much about my time in Maria de Ávila. And there were great dancers, around me all the time. So yeah, it was an amazing time.
How long were you there for?
So if I joined around 7, and I was there, until I was 15, when I was 14, because her daughter became also a very well-known teacher, and she opened a studio in Madrid. So there was 2 studios, one in Zaragoza and one in Madrid. And eventually the studio in Madrid closed, and Lola de Avila, who was her daughter, who
I met her.
she became the artistic director. She was Helgi Thomasson, the former artistic director of San Francisco Ballet, went to Madrid to the studio because
Oh, wow.
he had heard of her. And as a matter of fact, at one point they had made a small young ballet company, and that ballet company one year had a grant, and they toured around America, and they were like
Wow.
14 to 18, 20 years old, and they came with a very classical program and a neoclassical program, and they tour universities around. And Helgi somehow had seen them, and he thought, oh my God, they're really amazing dancers. So then he went to Madrid, met with Lola, and brought her to San Francisco to be the artistic director of the school.
Wow.
So Lola came when I was 14 to visit, and we were doing our end of the year performances. And she said to my parents, hey, if he's serious about it, he's probably going to have to leave Spain. So that means that maybe he should go to do a summer program in America, maybe San Francisco Ballet School, and see if he likes it. And if he likes it, then maybe, that tells you that he's serious about this. And then maybe you need to make another investment in another way. So all of a sudden, this was proposed to me. Do you want to go to San Francisco for a summer program? And I was like, hello, yes.
Hell yeah.
Yes. So I went there for 6 weeks. I had classes with Jorge Esquivel, who was a Cuban teacher who danced with Alicia Alonso. It was the first time that I was ever in a room with all male, all kids, my age, dancing together. I mean, it was an amazing experience. And I thought, how do I come back? How do I come back? So I was there from, short answer, it was 17 to 15 that I was in Zaragoza training. And those years I just learned so much. I think it
Yeah.
gave me the wings to really go somewhere else.
Yeah, you always need a really strong base as a dancer, obviously. And those
Yeah.
teachers sound just like absolutely incredible.
Yeah. I was very lucky, as as I think as many dancers that are successful, there's a teacher behind those dancers and some mentors that really solidify that base at the beginning of their career, that really
Oh, yeah.
share their passion, and then that passion becomes your own passion, and then it has a clear path.
Yeah, our teachers and mentors are so important. So important.
Yes.
So then you went to get a gold medal at Prix de Lausanne.
Yes. So that's
Right?
I mean, so then I went to I went to the summer program to San Francisco. I was 14. Like I said, it was an amazing experience. I started somehow speaking English. I pretended that I spoke English. But I found a really good friend there that was Colombian, who also became a professional dancer. Anyways, it was an amazing experience. And I came back home, and I think my parents thought, okay, this is it. He's gonna say this was too far. I want to stay here. And I came back and I was like, I love it. How do I get back? How? And at that time, I'm old. This was 1994.
Nice.
None of you were born. You were like,
Yes, I was.
She
I
was
was.
one, right?
I was
ripe
one.
old age of one.
Oh my God. One. That's amazing. So while you were one, I was trying to get a scholarship to come back to America because I was a foreigner, so there were not that many scholarships that were given at the time to foreigners. So then my teacher in Spain, Lola and María de Ávila, they said, "Why don't you go to the Prix de Lausanne in Switzerland and see if you get a sponsor, a scholarship, something that allows you to come back." And I didn't feel, I felt pressure, but she said, if you don't do well in the competition, then we'll try to figure out if we can maybe bring you or find you some support here. So then I went back to Spain. I turned 15 that fall, and in January was the competition at the Prix de Lausanne. And that year was very special because every 4 years they used to pick like a theater around the world, a major theater around the world, and they would do the semifinal or the final in that. And they had done it at the Garnier in Paris and in New York at the Metropolitan. And this year was at the Bolshoi Theater.
Wow.
So it was, people, I was not aware of what the Bolshoi Theater really, meant at that point. Everybody said it's a big theater and it's in Moscow and, great. But you're not, when you're 15, you're more worried about, the rake of the stage that was, massive. You're worried about, am I going to make it? Am I good enough? So I went there and I did well. I made it to the final. I got the gold medal and I got a scholarship. And there I went. I was like, I'm going back to San Francisco. And then after that, everything just kind of like kept rolling a little bit.
So cool. What an amazing experience.
It was an amazing experience. Gillian Murphy was with me in the final.
Oh,
She was my age. Also, Stella Brera was also there.
the best.
All these people that you meet when you're like 15, 16, and then you have parallel careers. You're not
Yeah.
aware that these people that you're meeting in these competitions and events, that they're gonna become hopefully friends, but definitely are gonna become your peers, your coworkers, the future directors, the future choreographers, the future voices in the dance world. Like you're just not aware of that, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh wow, this is the generation that will, shape the next generation of dance, the way
It's so
dance is
cool.
gonna. So
Those competitions are like my experience with that was YGP, and my parallels are like Skylar Brandt, Beck Sisk, Michaela de Prince, who else? Aaron Bell when he was a baby,
Yeah.
and so many other people that I'm forgetting right at this moment. But it was just like, it's so cool to be a professional and like see them also just be the most amazing dancers too, and we all grew up together. It's such a cool thing.
Yeah, it's important to see yourself, to be able to make those connections and friends, and also those moments you're not aware just yet, but they will shift your career. They can really change the way you see yourself as a dancer, but they can also bring opportunities. And for me, that was a really a big opening door, because I was able to come back to the stage. I was able to start the process of becoming a professional dancer, and I came back to San Francisco, and it was for the full year. And then I stayed with a family, an American family. There were also dancers, some of them were the Orsas, who also became dancers in New York City Ballet, in San Francisco Ballet. They were a very dance prominent family, and we became very good friends of mine, and they're still very good friends. But I became a professional dancer in San Francisco. It's sort of like where the dream started, and it all really happened because I had the opportunity to come back through this competition.
Totally. And with the success, how did that shape your relationship with pressure and perfectionism as you moved into a professional career?
Well, once I won the gold medal, that was sort of, I remember that I came back to the studio, and I did a lot of interviews, and all of a sudden you're received as like you're the 15-year-old messiah for whatever reason, and that's sort of odd. And right away, I felt the pressure. It's like fear sinks in right away. And but I think when that happens, having people around you that can sort of ground you and can say, this means nothing. This means that you have the talent, that people are verbally saying you have the talent, and now you have to keep doing what you've been doing and keep trusting yourself. This is affirmation. This doesn't mean that you're not allowed to make mistakes. This doesn't mean
Hmm.
that you're not allowed to be doubtful and have fear. This doesn't mean that you have to be perfect at all times. This just means that you are going the right path in the right way. And with that said, everything else is sort of put it aside. And that's very important. I had people around me that were able to, when they saw maybe the fear sinked in or myself being doubtful, they were able to remind myself or teach me about that it's just, it doesn't have to become something that puts too much pressure, that it makes you smaller, but it is something that's a sort of, it's a reminder that you're going the right way, and then put it away and then just keep going, right? So it was a good lesson for me to learn quickly, because I did felt the pressure.
Yeah.
I remember that I was invited to dance in a gala in Madrid that summer, and that I was supposed to do Paquita, Parade or something. And I was rehearsing in my studio, and I was like, oh my God, but what about if I don't do 5 turns and people are not gonna, think that I'm worthy of a gold medal? And especially I was 15 years old and I was awarded this uh medal, but because of the potential also that I had. But I was watching other, Angel Correa had just won his competition in Paris. He was older than me, but he was like at a completely different level. Like he could do things that I was just starting to dream of doing.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, I cannot do this. You start comparing yourself, and and yeah, surrounding yourself with people that can help you put things together a little bit, and remind you that just because you do well and you win these things and you're given a title, it doesn't mean that you're not allowed to make mistakes, and you're not allowed to keep growing in different directions. And that's it's one of the biggest lessons.
Yeah, totally. And then you probably carried that into becoming a principal at 22 in San Francisco, such a
Yeah,
young age to carry that title. Did you
yeah.
feel ready, or how did you feel with that, that title then?
I felt ready. I mean, I right away again felt that pressure. You feel that pressure right away, and you feel like, which it is true, you are under pressure, because you not just on stage but off stage, the way you carry yourself, it's super, being a principal dancer is not just you are good from 8 to 10 p.m. It means that you have to be good 24 hours a day. You have to be
Totally.
much more responsible with the way you take care of your body. You have to carry yourself as an example to other dancers. And so when you're a young principal, that's sort of a lot to take care of. Luckily, I think from my childhood, I was already taught those things. You know what I mean? You were sort of
Yeah.
expected, you know, um, you were sort of expected to have those standards. So I always had that. But yeah, you are under pressure. But I was also ambitious. When you are, in order to get to be a principal dancer, you have to be ambitious, and you have to have the desire to dance these roles that you don't know why you want to dance them, but you just see
You
yourself.
just do.
You just wanna, you're like, that looks like it's gonna be fun. It's
Yeah,
like, first time I saw Prodigious Thrill of Exactitude by William Forsythe in San Francisco, and I was in the school, and I was like, I want to do that. like
totally.
like to me, the music, the way the curtain came up and the dancers were already in fifth position, that's just that feeling of, I want to feel what it feels like to be in fifth position and the curtain goes up, and I do that. To me, that was, enough of wanting to dance that role. And it means that in order to dance those roles, sometimes you have to be up on those ranks, so that was, so having ambition sort of, I think what I'm trying to say is that, yes, you're under pressure, but I think if you concentrate on the fact that what you ultimately want to do is dance those roles, no matter what, is like, if you can put that aside, the reason why you do it is because there's joy.
Yeah.
There's a lot of joy, and there's a lot of fun to be had while you are dancing those roles. So, if you can manage to balance those things and not forget why you do those things, why you want those things, then I think it helps you maneuver the travel part of being, pressure.
Yeah.
Was it that ambition that you had that kind of at that point where you become fully established at San Francisco drove you to take that risk and go to New York City Ballet?
Yes. I mean, I think that yes, I think, and I think people, a lot of dancers have this, and I always felt, I was always aware, maybe because I heard it a lot. Oh, at first I didn't understand it, but when you grow up, people are like, I would hear my parents talk to other parents, and they'll be like, oh, but it's such a short career, and when you're like, you're 10 and you're like, what do you mean? Like
Like, it's
40,
going
that's
forever.
40, that's like forever.
That's old.
You're not aware. And you hear this narrative that it's a short career, and you hear this narrative that life goes fast. It's like, oh my God, time is going, blah blah blah. And then you quickly realize, that you're 11, and that you're like, oh my God, but by 16 you're supposed to, like, either be in a competition, or you have to have something, because by 18, if you don't have that, you might not get you start sort of starting to experience that narrative, and you're starting to be more aware that you're like, oh, but if I want to be a principal, I should be, all of these things become part of life. And I was very much aware that, that I wanted to do as much as I could in the time given that I would
Yeah.
have, So when I moved quickly through the ranks in San Francisco, which was an amazing experience, I also started thinking, what next? When you are 27 or 26 years old, and you have danced a lot of the classical roles, and you dance, a lot of the major balancing, and you are looking at what else is out there. And ultimately, I also am a European born dancer that, being in San Francisco felt far away from other things. Geographic location paid also a big role in where I wanted to do, right? So then I was 27, and I thought, if I want to make a change, you have sort of a window between 27 and 30 some, to maybe change. And because maybe you change and the first change that you make is not successful, and then you might have to make another change. So you have to sort of have those things in mind. And so then that was in the back of my mind a little bit. And when I was invited to go to the Balancing Centennial in 2004 for Ballo de la Regina, I was a guest with New York City Ballet, dancing with Lorna Feijó, who was a ballerina from the National Ballet of Cuba, who had just joined Boston Ballet. And
How cool.
she was the sister of Lorena Feijó, who was a dancer in San Francisco Ballet, who I used to dance with, right? So I knew of the Feijó sisters. They were like very famous in the Cuban world and the dance world. And I was invited to dance with Lorna in New York, and we did like about 5 shows, but we were there for like 10 days or 2 weeks. So I got to see the company perform of this rep, because at New York City Ballet, it's like every day is a different program, and it's really, it's like nothing around the world, really. And you're at Lincoln Center. It was the spring, which is the best weather.
Best
And
weather.
I was like, oh my God, I started to experience what being an artist in New York City is. And I thought that it was amazing. But I was, also having a very fruitful and successful career in San Francisco. So I went back, and I think I was 24 at the time. And 3 years later, I felt, okay, maybe it's now the time that I make a jump. And having seen that there is other opportunities in other companies, I think gave me the strength to pick up the phone and sort of investigate about the possibilities of joining New York City Ballet. And I was lucky that there was room.
I think it's a lovely gift to have almost achieved, quote unquote, the goal of getting to principal so young, because then you get to explore what your own personal goals are going to be for your career. And
Yes.
moving to New York City Ballet, it's a change and an adapting approach to do so much more Balanchine and Robin's work. How did you approach that coming from years at San Francisco?
I mean, I was the repertoire in some ways I had experience because Helgi had been one of those dancers, principal dancers in New York City Ballet in the golden era. He was a Robbins dancer. Robbins used him so much. So when he took over San Francisco Ballet, he brought the Robbins works. He brought theme and variations. He started shaping the dances in that vocabulary, and they danced it quite well. So, I had danced a Prodigal Son. I had danced dances of a gathering, fanfare, other dances, Apollo, rubies. I was sort of not unknown to some of that repertoire. And also Helgi brought a lot of his friends that were peers of him in New York City Ballet in the 70s to stage the work. I mean, Jacques d'Amboise, who was the Apollo, and he taught me,
Oh, wow.
Apollo. Yeah, he cast me. I remember we were on tour in Belfast, and we were gonna have a week off, and the last day on tour, they posted what the first day of rehearsal was gonna be. And I was young, and they said Apollo Garcia with other, and I was like, what is going on? Like, I was
That's
like,
incredible.
no, yeah, like I was like, oh, and I didn't know who Jack was. And I was like, who's Jack Boss?
Yeah.
So I went, and I did my research, and I had an amazing sort of introduction to some of these roles already. And yet when I did the Centennial, I realized that I had only seen a little bit of the cake, that the cake was massive. So when I went in there, the repertoire at first wasn't the most challenging part of it. As a matter of fact, I think there was, right away, there was jewels, and I got to do, rubies, and there were some injuries, and I was able to go into some of these roles that I had done already quickly. But I think the most challenging part of it was that you are in an incredible, exciting city, but it's a city that is very demanding, and that you have to build life from not from scratch, but you have to build your own home,
Totally.
your own friends, your own life. And I think that takes a minute. And then New York City Ballet, which I think has shifted a lot in the, from 2007 when I joined until now, and it will keep shifting. But, everybody was from SAB, right? I mean, and most of the time, still now, the students are from SAB, and I think dancers have now opened up their mind a lot. Some
Yeah.
dancers come from very different backgrounds. When I joined, there was a group that was very interested on that, but there was also a big group that hadn't been exposed to people coming from different backgrounds and dancing maybe the works of Balanchine and Robbins with a different approach or a different voice. And so this was challenging, and New York City Ballet had a very strong hierarchy and a very strong political hierarchy also that was
Yeah.
unspoken. And so I was reminded very quickly that that there is a ladder. I was giving this conversation of like, yes, you will go through it, but there is a ladder, and there is a time, and as a person ambitious as I was, at that point I was like, okay, can I jump the ladder? I'm a good jumper. Can I jump like it's like, how do I
Be
get
like,
there?
I'm ready.
I'm
I'm ready to
ready. I'm
jump.
I'm ready to jump. My knees are doing okay. I'm ready to jump. There was a lot of that, and I learned quickly. It's like, sure, but you're in an institution that has a history beyond what you might know. And you have to
Totally.
learn that. And you have to be patient. And learning that history sometimes doesn't mean that you have to be on stage. You have to learn it not by not being on stage. And that's how you learn how things work. And you have to learn that sometimes it doesn't have to do just with talent. It has to do with different things. It has to do with the moment. It has to do with other nuanced political things that you have to learn how to maneuver. And that is a voice that I think I hadn't developed, where I had to sit down with maybe the director and negotiate. And I was like, but what do you mean? I'm here at 8 o'clock. I thought that just by being at 8 and leaving, at 10:30, the last person, and working really hard, it will be enough. And then you realize, no, that's not enough. There's other skills that you have to learn. There's other parts of being part of New York City Ballet that you have to learn. And that was, I think, my most challenging part of it all. But I am so grateful that I had that, because I think it made me realize a lot of things that at that point maybe I hadn't realized yet. I will dare even to say been lucky or spoiled to some degree,
This episode of the Grace and Form podcast is sponsored by a wonderful donor who wants to shine a light on some of the most impactful dance and art charities in the world. Today we're highlighting the National Dance Institute's Dream Project. At NDI, the belief is simple but powerful. Everyone can dance. It's a mission that's close to our heart. Indiana herself has performed numerous times at NDI with the incredible Daniel Ulbrich, who has a huge impact on this incredible institute. She's seen firsthand the incredible impact the work has on young dancers and their communities. If you'd like to support the Dream Project, you can donate at nationaldance.org. Every contribution helps keep the joy of dance accessible to every child.
Yeah, I also feel like I wanna jump in, because seeing you as an artist and as a colleague and dancing with you, I feel like I learned. I'm also a very hard worker, as you know, and I really care so much about ballet and just love it, and also just love a challenge.
Right.
But something that I learned from you was to do, which I always did, but to do even more your due diligence in your homework.
Mhm.
And because I would see Gonzo Sass, like, for you to get some context too, I would see Gonzo in the studio alone, figuring out like the perfect port de bras for him, or watching videos or doing some research. And like, it was so nice to see, because it was something, in New York City you really have, and I'm sure in many other companies, it's very fast paced.
Yeah.
So you don't always have time to explore
Yeah.
every detail about the role that you hope you would, because it matters that much and you should put that
Sure.
much care into it, but sometimes there's just not that time. And so Gonzo, you really were such a great example for all of us, and obviously myself, because I took it on as well, of really doing your homework and finding all the beautiful nuances of a role and putting yourself in there. And also that it doesn't matter how many roles you get, it's about how you come to those roles, even if
Yeah.
it's one in the season, and that's
Yeah.
so important
Yeah.
as a dancer of in any rank. And I feel like I just always like to highlight that, because it's something that I think needs to be uplifted even more, that it's part of our job as well. Like you say, the 24-hour of a principal, as a dancer too, you have to do your homework as well, and it'll only help you in your roles, but also just in your life, to just take a little bit more responsibility of what you're doing.
Yeah. And I think creating not just that template of this is what I need to do to be successful, you know what I mean, learn, but I think it's you can't take anything for granted, you know what I mean. So it's like I learned at City Ballet that I quickly, it's like if I got one new role per season or maybe the whole year, that's like I added something,
Yeah.
or if I had if you meant one new piece, and I finally got to dance Prodigal Son. I mean, I danced Prodigal when I was 18 or 19 years old in the corps at San Francisco Ballet. And it took me over 10 years to do it at New York City Ballet. I learned it right away, but there was other people in front of me, and there was so many logistics, and but I was like, it will happen, it will happen. And then eventually when it came back on, I was like, oh wow, I never let it go. I have been a greater understanding of
You have a
this. So
huge understanding of everybody
huge.
you got to see too before. Like that was
Exactly.
another thing is, Gonzo, you taught me to just also observe the people in the front of the room, even if you're so frustrated
Yeah.
that you're not doing this role that you really feel like it's time, maybe that this is a good time for you to do it. You feel healthy, ready, all this stuff. So many other factors, but being in the back is also just as important because you can gather
Super.
so much information for yourself to one day when you get to do it, or for another role,
Absolutely. Absolutely. You have to be patient, which is really, really, really hard for
Yeah.
dancers. And when you're, one thing that I learned also in the city ballet environment, that is like, okay, if you're not busy this way, then you gotta find yourself another outlet. And if that meant what is being an artist in New York City, maybe you need to expose yourself to different things. Maybe you need to go take classes with a teacher that that it's I became a Willie Berman dancer because I wanted to experience that, and I created a relationship with outside teachers, which in San Francisco was not possible. And all of a sudden, these teachers taught me so much history about dance in these institutions and in New York, and what I could do and what I could bring, and then I created this. Not having so much work at City Ballet allowed me to actually create a family outside that made it so much more rich. You know what I mean? So there's always an opportunity of growth. It's just takes work, and it takes being determined and patient, and it's not an easy thing to do, but we have to.
Yeah.
I think it's a great sentiment, dancer or not. Sometimes it is about just finding other things that are going to fill your cup up. So when that cup isn't getting filled for you, you can lean on other things.
Like this
Exactly.
podcast.
Exactly. Got to do something else. Get you on here, Indy. Get you working when you're not working. Okay.
Well, and talking to the best.
We're going to change the pace. We've got a fun game for you, Gonzalo. We want to, for people that are just listening and not watching this, we'd love you to describe these photos that Indy and I have pulled, just a few photos from your life. And we'd love you to explain the context and tell us what was going on here, starting with one that I'm sure you really, really remember. I'm going to pull it up just here.
I mean, hilarious. This is with my twin brother, because I'm a twin. And I think this was like not even, we were a few months old. And this is, for whatever reason, in that time in Spain, either, which I think is lovely, but either you were a boy or a girl, you were put into these dresses for these baptism photos, So here we are.
Which one's you? Which one is you?
I'm the one that has lighter hair.
Lighter hair.
And my brother is the one with darker hair with blue eyes. He has light eyes, and he's like a Snow White. He's like a fatty Snow White, because we were so fat. We were like fatty little healthy little
so cute.
Absolutely
kids.
Adorable.
And that's a really big part of my childhood, that I was a twin, a fraternal twin, and yet very, we grew up in the same house, and we had very different personalities, and I think that was really great to have, someone to always be entertained with, and we have different approaches, and yet we're very similar in values. You know, yeah, he's an important person in my life. He's still an important person in my life. He came to do a ballet with me, my first class ever, and
Oh.
and we didn't know anything. So my mom borrowed some tights and stuff from my cousin's uniform. That they used to have like tights and skirt. So we borrowed the tights, and my mom got a t-shirt, and my brother saw himself in the mirror, and he was like, "Thank you very much. This is not for me." And he sat down. The teacher was like, "It's okay, you can sit down." And I never looked back.
You were like, "This is
I
me."
was like, like doing these combos there, like, and I guess the teacher said to my mom, "I don't think this one is gonna come back." But this one, this one is definitely gonna come back. So there you go. There's a story for you.
That's brilliant. I love it. Okay, the next one we've got very different.
Oh my God, this is Opus 19 with Misha and Sterling, right?
What a dream.
Yeah, this was Opus 19 was an amazing, very special ballet for me because it was a Robbins ballet that I had never seen or danced while I was in San Francisco. And when I joined the company, um, you know, I just started developing amazing relationships with all of these ballerinas, all these friends, and Wendy Welland, who was, already Wendy Welland beyond, she came to me and she said, I have an idea. I have an idea of a ballet that I think you would be really good. And it was Opus 19. She had danced there with many partners, and her last one was Peter Ball, who retired dancing Opus 19. He was very well known for that role. And I didn't know anything about it. And she just mentioned that. And I think she went to Peter at the time, the director, and to JP and the Robinson and Susie Hendo, who was taking care of this ballet, famous rep director in New York City Ballet. And she says, I think this would be good for Gonzalo. So then they cast me and they put it on the board, and I didn't know this ballet, and he said Opus 19, and he said Garcia, and then I think Robbie was learning it, and a few other people, and Joaquin de Luz, who was a former principal dancer and a friend of mine, Spanish, he said, "Oh boy, they're gonna hate you now." He said, "Because everybody wants to dance this role," and I was like, "Really?" I was like, "What is this role?" I was like, so. And I went into the room not knowing anything, which was one of the first times probably ever that I have done that. I usually before that would have done, found a tape and learned the ballet by myself. And I went in there, and Susie Hendo was just amazing. And this role, it was incredible. And I danced it so much, and it became a really special, unique piece for me. I danced it also in my retirement.
Yeah.
And about 10 years dancing the role, they brought Misha Baryshnikov to rehearse us, who was the original. He actually premiered the role in Washington, in Kennedy Center, and he says that he premiered it and danced it a couple times, and then he never danced it again. But he had so much to add, and I think when he came into the room, I was much more experienced, not just as a principal dancer, but also with the role. I had danced it so much, and Wendy was an incredible person to start with the role because she also had so much experience with the role. So she taught me so much from the very beginning. So when Misha came in, I was ready to be surprised and to have more info and to make this role new in some ways. And he was able to do that. And Sterling and I had danced it already together for a few seasons. And so that was, it's a very memorable role for sure.
Oh, okay. This one's very different and amazing. There's a very sweet little person in between you two too. I love this one.
Oh my God, that is my wedding.
That's your wedding.
Yeah, in your backyard.
My wedding in my backyard with Pincho, my little cat. Well, he's not little. He's
Big
not
one.
little. He's a big cat. He's a big cat. And my husband, Ezra Hurwitz, who I met 2013 is when I met Ezra. And I don't know why I decided to wear pink for the weddings. It was
Why
like
not?
a statement. But yeah, it was during COVID, so it was a tough sort of like time, and we were planning on getting married the following year. But when COVID hit, I woke him up and I was like, "Good morning." I was like, "Do you want to get married next week?"
Oh.
And he was like, "What?" Because we had talked about it, and he was gonna, and I said, let's just do it. Let's just do it. It'll be, we have a beautiful backyard. It'll be small. We had become so good at Zoom meetings already because we had been teaching and pretty much taking class and everything. I said, we'll have my family in Zoom. We'll have our friends in Zoom. We'll have a few people here. We'll make it just very intimate. And so COVID was really challenging. So
Yeah.
we decided, yes, let's get married. And 2 weeks later, we got married, and it was the best thing I ever done.
Oh, and you two collaborate in work and as you do in life. I've seen lots from scrolling and Indy sending me so many different incredible videos and pictures. In what way has your, I guess, creative relationship influenced your artistic eye?
In all of the ways. I mean, when I met Ezra randomly at Dakota Bar in 72nd in New York, I quickly realized that evening that he was, incredibly gifted, and that he was very ambitious and had, you know, ideas of what he wanted to do, beyond dance. He was planning on what's the next phase, and he was deciding on if he stayed in Miami City Ballet, which he was dancing as a core member, or go to school. And I didn't know him so well, but I thought, oh my God, he better stop dancing, because I think he has so much to give. And he was 27 years old. And anyways, with that said, he did. He stopped dancing. He came back to New York. We started dating, and our relationship flourished and stuff. And then I was able to see him grow in this, other life, from dancing. He became a film director. He worked with all these major dance companies, around the world, in America, and he's done so much stuff. And now, as an artistic director, I am leveraging that as much as I can.
Yeah, best.
Because we have already worked together in different projects, as an artist, as someone assisting him in many different ways. And I think his genius is, a challenging act. When you're working with someone that you love, you have to, you know find the line there, very quickly. But we've been able to do that very well. And as soon as I got this job in Miami, one of the things that I thought that you can change right away is sort of, the visuals. The other things are going to take time. It's an investment that you will see in a few years. But I thought that the visuals, I could really change dramatically quickly to sort of shift from a different time. You know what I mean? It's like a new time, a new director. After now we're celebrating 40 years. This is what we want to look like for the next 40 years. So I told Ezra, hey, I have no
Come on
budget.
board.
You're gonna work for free for me a little bit. I will make dinners. I will take you out. I'll give you a little back massage at the end of the day. Because I don't have the budget, but I have the passion, and I know you are the right person for this, because you were a dancer for 8 years here. This
Mm.
is your city. This is your company. This is where you dance as an artist. And I said, and now you have the responsibility, not just as a husband to help me, but you have the responsibility as an artist to shape this next chapter. So to say that he's working very hard for me, it's like an understatement. But I
I
think
love it.
that I think is it's important to have him on board for this.
That's amazing. And I think with other halves as well, like I always think with my boyfriend's work, I'm even if I'm not in it, I'm in it. There's so many conversations
Yes.
and shared moments that you have even when you're not working together. So then when you can, it's a
Yes.
really beautiful and fun thing, because there's obviously a line to be drawn somewhere so that there's
Yes.
respect always. But at the same time, you're able to create something that you love with the person that you love, which is so special. And that brings us into being an artistic director and the final picture that leads Indy into her final questions, which is, of course, this one.
That is so funny.
Which is like life size right now. I made it as big as I could, which is when you announced that you
Yes,
were
that
going to be a
picture.
director.
I'll tell you, that picture is not just as special for me because it's sort of announcing a new chapter in my life, and something that I was looking forward to have the opportunity to develop my voice as a leader, and I'm so passionate about dance and dancers and repertoire and all of those things, right? So that's a really big moment, personal moment for you. But I'll tell you that when I was given the opportunity, I was flying to Spain. I had already planned a trip to go see my family in June. And then quickly, before I left, I was given the news that I was the new director. And then I was like, oh my God, I don't have, my headshots from New York City Ballet I have kept since I was 15 because I thought that I looked young and wonderful. So
You did, and you still
I
do.
I hadn't updated anything. And I thought, there all of a sudden there's a timeline, you have to announce this, we need, and I was like, oh my God. So I found myself in Zaragoza, Spain. And I went shopping to get, a suit for what that I thought would be good. And then Ezra, through social media, found a photographer that had experience with photo shoots of this kind, and he was driving from Barcelona to Madrid, and in the middle of the drive you go by Zaragoza, and he says, I'll stop for a few hours and do the photo shoot with you guys, and then I'll keep going because I have another job. So we booked this guy who seemed nice, and we liked his work. Ezra did that through social media. And then my teacher, Lola de Avila, my studio where I started dancing, we thought, okay, let's ask Lola if it is okay for us to do the photo shoot there. And Lola is like, are you kidding me? She's like, of course, and then all of a sudden it became a very meaningful thing to do the photo shoot in the small studio where the little kids, when you first, you have, there's the small studio and the big studio. And the small studio is where I started doing my first ballet classes there. And there's a window, and a bar, and it's all exactly the same as I was practically, when I thought, this is where we need to do the photo shoot. And the photographer came, and we had a few hours, and he thought, oh, we could get the light in here. So we did a few shots. One is that one with the bar, which is the bar that I used to hold. It's the same bar that I used to hold when I was little. And then we did another one with the window. It's a famous window that, we did, since you're a kid, you used to open and close all the time. And I thought, okay, well, and then Lola, my teacher, she said to me, how amazing that we can, that we'll always remember, this photo shoot, this will always be a special. It was like full circle coming back
Yeah,
home to, so, so that photo to me is very special, not just because it marks the beginning of something else that I think is a new chapter that hopefully will bring a lot of reward for the next generations of dancers and stuff. But it also, for me personally, just is a quick reminder that humble beginnings can take you far.
totally. I mean, that's just the most beautiful full circle moment I could ever imagine. And from
Yeah.
this beautiful photo, I'm so happy we found this one, Sass. Okay, so speaking of artistic directorship, did you ever feel like you wanted to be an artistic director, or was there a curiosity of it when you were in the company? Was there like a moment where you felt like this was something that you might want to pursue?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I started teaching when I was young. Lola and María de Ávila, they always said to me, oh, you should teach whenever you have a chance because you learn a lot about yourself, about what you know and you don't know, and how to communicate and how to be in front of the room and how. And so I started doing that at a young age, and I like that. I enjoyed that. And then when I had a big injury when I was 38, I think it was 2017 or 2018, I had a lot of time off. So, I started teaching more coming back, and I started then teaching the company and teaching the school and being more in front of the room. And I always had a lot of curiosity about, how do you put programs together that are interesting for people? How do you educate your audience? How do you bring the new voices of choreographers, to the table, which is always a really exciting thing, but very challenging thing. I always had this passion. And as you start getting more opportunities, you realize, that I started realizing that I really wanted the chance to be able to have more control of that. And as I was a rep director of New York City Ballet, it was an incredible experience because I got to work, with indie, with a lot of incredible dancers in many different ballets, and I started thinking, oh, I wonder if I had the chance, how I would push this dancer, what rep I would bring for this dancer, and what, you want to have a little bit more freedom to be able to make some of those calls, and being
Totally.
an artistic director allows you to drive that in certain ways. I mean, it's much more nuanced than that, because you could want to do all this repertoire, and it doesn't mean that you might be able to do it. You might not have the budget, the dancers, the theaters, all of the logistics. But I I love everything that goes with that. With creating a program, with fundraising, with finding talent in the school. How do you develop that bridge into all of the aspects of being an artistic director? To me, were desirable and challenging, and it makes sense for what I wanted to do next, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you're an amazing coach. I've had the, you know, honor of doing that with you, but also dancing with you. And you've had the opportunity to be coached by some of the greatest teachers and dancers and so many people around the world. What do you believe today's dancers need most from leadership that perhaps wasn't available in previous generations or even in your generation?
Wow, that's a good
So it's a bit of
question.
a loaded question, but
It's a good question. I mean, I think that, I think there used to be a time where you could be incredibly demanding, and almost get a lot of success from a room that was guided by fear sometimes. Right? And you got results.
yeah,
I think, but I think that, as we have experienced through time, that also brought other issues, in artists, and even for artists to stay open-minded as different ways of doing things. So I think that the standard of the room has to stay super high, and I think that dancers need to be pushed, kids need to be pushed to be the best that they can be. But I think that finding leadership that comes from a place where you can find a balance of nurturing, and yet not letting the ball drop of the standard, I think that is what's really hard to do. And
yeah,
I think that's what I'm sort of passionate about, trying to always remind myself how I felt, when I was, in that side of the room as a dancer, and
yeah.
what that meant, and yet have an ambition that you still want to push the company to move forward. So I think that finding that balance in leadership is challenging. I
Yeah,
think that new generations of leaders that are younger, that have experienced, the shift from that time to a different time, will be able to maneuver that transition. And so I'm very passionate about that, and I always, said it, that the first person that has to be vulnerable in the room is the one in front. You know what I mean? You can't,
totally.
you have to be vulnerable and be willing to even say that you have made a mistake, and I was wrong. I'll change it. Your head should be this way. You know what I mean? Like, and I think when you show that vulnerability in front of the room, then dancers start trusting you, and then they can be vulnerable, and then you can start shaping them, and you can start, so you creating a place of trust and transparency, which is the hardest thing to do. I think leaders have to be transparent. It's like, I'm gonna
Totally.
give you the chance to do this role, but and to learn this role, but I don't know if you'll ever do it. We have to figure out if I can get you there, if you can get there. All of these things where in previous leadership that was much it was guided in a different light. I think that's it's not going to be easy, but I think that's where I would like to be able to get, to a place where I can be encouraging and nurturing, and yet ambitious and transparent.
And I also want to ask, to top off that question with injury, that kids or students or apprentices or core members, soloist
Yeah.
principals, they all go through it, from the experiences that you had as a dancer and now being in this role as an artistic director, what do you kind of advise for those people in the position that you're in now and how to handle it? You know, because it's so hard, injury.
Yeah. I mean, I started kind of dealing with this sort of like right away. You know, it's like you're an artistic director, you got to deal with dancers that are going to be injured, and I have certainly been injured myself, and that had taught me how to sort of recover and what is the best path, and when did I feel pushed too soon, or when did I pressure myself that I could have used a voice telling me it's okay. So I've been sort of dealing with this and with dancers, and I had a particularly a dancer that had, when I took over, she was already injured, right? She was sort of coming back from an injury, a couple of them. One had it was a principal dancer that had been away for a year and a half, and it was a big injury, and she didn't know if she was coming back, and she was feeling really strong in the process of coming back, and she wanted to dance two big roles in the first program, and then the day before we opened, she had, you know, like a calf spasm, and everything just sort of crumbled, and you know, we're not a big company, so then we have to ship things, and you know, and she was very emotional, and I said, it's okay. I said, we are gonna get through this. I said, go home, you know, don't be in the theater this weekend, because, you know, it's gonna be emotionally very hard. I said, get away. I said, take 2 days. I said, on Monday, she was gonna meet with the doctors. I said, you know, you can reassess. She had more shows the following weekend. I said, we still have a full week. I said, I have seen dramatic changes. I said, on Monday, you get it reassessed. On Tuesday, we take it, we make another decision, you know. And I said, instead of doing two roles, you only do one. Which one do you, you know, let's. And I said, you know, I realized that a lot of it was after a year and a half, and I had a year off almost, when there's some, you're emotionally so charged that some of it is like the pressure of this, and then it goes into this, you know, it's like there's so many variables. And I said to her, just slowly, I said, let's just, and my rep directors were freaking out a little bit, like, but we gotta make a decision, because what about this? And I said, I think that we need to just all hold on until Wednesday, and tell her that she has the time until Wednesday, and then on Wednesday we make another decision. And you know, everybody was nervous, including me, because you have to, you know, be ready for the next weekend. And then we were very lucky. And then on Wednesdays, he was feeling better. And I said, on Wednesday, you just walk it, you know. And I have seen many ballerinas gone through these. And on Wednesday you walk it, and on Thursday you do half of it on point, and then half of it on demi, and blah, blah. And then by Saturday she did it, and she was totally fine. And the signs point out that she was super emotional, and it was a year and a half. I knew that she needed to feel like she had our back for those few extra days, even that it was causing stress on our side, really stress. But I think she needed just to feel a little bit room there to breathe,
Supported.
and that it was going to pay off. And then she did it, and she's back, and now she got that out of the way, and she did a beautiful performances. And so I think that, you know, through my experience, I'm going to be able to guide things. And I told them, to the rep directors, I said, sometimes we're not going to be able to give them that room. We're going to have to make a decision that is based on what's best for the company and everything. But sometimes we are going to be able to have some room, and it's going to be a little bit of a negotiation, and we have to sort of find out where is the balance. And at that point, I knew that I had a feeling that so much was emotional, you know, and and the emotional goes to the physical, you know. But I had seen her also for 5 weeks rehearsing, and I knew she was ready. You know. So, you know, it's going to be a learning curve all the time with injuries.
I think it's also kind of interesting and exciting to hear a story of almost the early days of being a director, because the dancer in you is so close at
Yeah.
all times. And I think it's it's almost like any new job, but it's exciting. And to hear you say that you've got to keep the vulnerability center stage of you, because if you're the person at the front of the room,
Yeah.
everybody else kind of follows. And I think with that, mindset, it will be so much easier to keep the dancer in you right there the whole time,
Yeah.
because you're starting off that way.
Yes.
And it's what's so exciting about kind of hearing and understanding dancers that have really gone through in their own careers a shift in what leadership looks like, and then you've got this new exciting beautiful idea of what it's going to look like for you. And what I was interested to know with the role of artistic director is if it's what you thought it would be in terms of what your day-to-day looks like, and whether actually there's much more computer time than you ever thought, whether you're going cross-eyed on Zooms more than you'd like, and what it actually looks like in reality. Is it more admin heavy than you'd have imagined?
It's definitely, I mean, I can't tell you that I hadn't imagined what the role would look like. I mean, I think that once again, like when I was, you know, giving the gold medal right away, you get the gold medal and fear starts right away. And then it's like, I was given the job and like fear starts right away. You're like, oh my God, you better don't screw this up. You know, that is sort of like that thought. But with that being said, I didn't really, you know, I had plans of what I wanted to do, but I didn't know what my daily life was going to be. And I am in my first year, so a lot of it is adjusting and learning the departments, and it's a big transition for the company, for me, so there's a lot to learn the first year. But yes, you are in constant, you know, I'm a bit of a workaholic, and I don't like to go to bed thinking that I have missed out something, you know, I might have. So then I'm, you know, it's very long hours. I would say that the most challenging thing is that you have to constantly be taking hats, you know. It's like example, like when was it? On Friday, I think on Friday I had an early meeting at 8, and then by 10 o'clock I was in a car going to a lunch an hour away. It was a Hispanic embracing Latin woman, and I was a speaker, and you know, and I was promoting my season in Nutcracker. And I had a lunch there, and in the Uber there, I had a video call about something else, a touring opportunity that has come up. And so I made a meeting there. I got there, I did the lunch, I did the speaker, and then I got in another Uber. I took another phone call in video for 2728, a project that we're trying to build, because you have to start building things that you hope that you're going to do. And then there was so much traffic because it's Art Basel, and Art Basel in Miami is very busy.
Oh
It's
yeah,
very
of course.
exciting, but it's very busy, and people. So I'm sort of experiencing life also as a person in Miami. Like I'm like, why is there so many people in Miami right now? So then I got to the studios, and I put my suit down and my computer, and I had 3 hours of like Nutcracker rehearsal.
You must have been exhausted.
And then when it was done at the end of the day, I went to experience Art Basel, because I wanted to do a couple galleries, because I wanted to meet a couple artists, because I'm thinking of next year for Art Basel, you know, what can we do in our building, because it's in the perfect location. So then I was exhausted, and the last thing that I wanted to go was like to talk to people. But at the same time, I was, you know, in my last 3 hours with the dancers, I got really energetic because I love being in the studio. And then all of a sudden, you know, I finished and I saw a lot of people dressed up going around Miami. And I was like, oh, how exciting. And then I got like this other wing of energy. And, you know, I was like, you got to do this, because if you want to do something next year, you got to do this now. So my days sometimes are a little bit like that.
Crazy.
Mad.
That's incredible.
But it's, you know, it's an exciting, you know, it's an exciting time. And I think that, you know, this year will be a lot of that. And, you know, a lot of other directors, you know, Miko from Boston was here also this week. So I had a dinner with him one night, and you know, he has been doing it for 25 years. He was a teacher of mine. I guested with Boston and with, you know, many times with him. And you know, you got to listen to the people that have been at it for many years, and yet you have to develop your own voice and allow yourself to make these mistakes. And but he said to me, you know, the first year or two, you know, it's a lot of digesting and quick decision making. You have to be able to have the guts to make quick decisions sometimes.
Which you do.
Which I do, because, you know, I'm not reckless, but I will make decisions.
I love it. I love that about you.
But, you know, it's an exciting job, but it's a big responsibility. And ultimately, I want to do good for the dancers and for this company that has always been a very special company in the world, I think.
Yeah, I think it's so special, and I think you're already doing an amazing job. So we're going to finish because we know you have to probably go to another meeting, but I want to ask you just one last question. What piece of advice would you give a dancer today to start their career or when they're starting their career?
Wow. I think a lot about this, you know, especially now that I'm going to audition and, you know, to find, you know, I will say, I think one good piece of mind is to have patience with themselves. You know, like patience is an important skill to develop that I think dancers is very hard to develop. And then I would um advise them to stay open-minded and watch and listen. It's super important. And then I would say that find the things that you're good at, or that you think that you're good at, and the skills, and concentrate on developing your own voice, you know, and don't spend so much time on trying to develop the voice that other voices, you know. It's like learn from other voices, but spend time developing your own voice and who you are, and what you might have to bring to the table. I think that is an important aspect, that with so many things around us these days, you forget about your own sort of like, what is it that I want to say, you know. I think that's
Totally.
very important.
It's so important. It's like I know I've said this on the podcast before, but my favorite quote, Oscar Wilde said, "Be yourself because everyone's already taken." It's like,
Yes.
you know, that feeling of like, you really just hone into, you know, what you can bring to the table, with taking all of the inspiration from the creatives around you and your peers too. Even if you feel like, oh, I wish I had her feet. Maybe you see how she uses the feet and you take that with you. But that's all such amazing advice, and I'm so happy we got to do this. You're just the best.
I'm so happy
much,
too, you guys. This was super special. I think you guys have an amazing platform. Keep at it. I think this is important work that you're doing. And yeah, and I'm here for whatever you guys need.
Oh, thank you, Francie. I love you.
Yes.
Thank you for listening to the Grace Informed podcast. This episode was produced by Indiana Woodward, Megan Elsie McNally, and me, Saskia Gregson-Williams. If you're really loving the show, it would be wonderful if you take a moment to rate and review us. It helps other ballet lovers find our pod and lets us bring you even more episodes. And of course, don't forget to subscribe.
Have thoughts, questions, or topics you'd like us to explore? You can find us on all social media platforms as Grace Informed Studio. Drop us a message. If this episode has got you itching to move, oh, do we have the app for you. Download the Grace Inform app today and start your 7-day free trial. Whether you're a seasoned dancer or just starting out, there are ballet classes and dance-inspired workouts for everyone, no matter the level. Come join our community of dance lovers and experience the joy of movement for yourself. Again, thank you so much for listening, and until next time, take a deep breath in, be gentle with yourself, and always keep moving forward.